So in the last video, I showed you guys how to get a proper basic stance for wrestling. In this next segment, what I'm going to be covering is movement. All right, how you should be moving using that stance. So check it out. All right, so to cover movement, also known as motion in wrestling, basically it's just moving your feet, so footwork, okay? From the previous video, we took a staggered stance. And what will happen is, a big no-no is people want to move using movement and crossing their feet as such, right? Or they cross this one in front. And every time I do so, I'm on the same line. In that fraction of a second before I regain my posture, that brings me very susceptible to a shot where I can't be positioned properly to defend, okay? Let alone attack. So what I want to be doing every time I'm practicing my NOGI grappling, my wrestling, is always keeping a nice distance between my feet and using small steps, all right? Small steps. Whether you're going fast or you're going slow, forward or back, you always want to keep contact with the mats, all right? So from the side, you'll notice that although my heels are touching gently on the mat, the majority of my weight is going to be on the balls of my feet, all right? So if you look at the side here, chest over knee, knee over toes, this is going to be the correct position every time I'm moving. Whether you're moving circular or spinning, you always want to have the balls of the feet in contact with the mats and using small steps. Now, there's a very critical concept I want you guys to understand is every time you raise your feet off the mat and you drop it back down, there's a fraction of a second where before you plant that lead foot back, you're susceptible, all right? And I like to teach that. That's the delay of time and the reaction. We'll cover that maybe in a future video. But for now is you want to be in a position where in slow motion, for example, if you take a giant step, there's a delay before my feet plants onto the ground. And during that transition where I get to here, my opponent can react to that and time that. All right, that's why it's important to take short steps. That way you're always in contact with the ground wherever you're moving. At any given time, if the opponent shot and I have to react for it, for example, by using a sprawl or even a recounter, if my foot is up in the air, it has to plant back down before I can actually move in an offensive attack or even a defensive maneuver. So it's very important to keep your feet with small, choppy steps onto the ground at all times. So what I would recommend for footwork is every time you practice your grappling, your NOGI Jiu-Jitsu, your wrestling, do some shadow wrestling. And this is a good important point because in every martial art, people shadow box. In boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, they do shadow boxing. Most martial arts have shadow fighting or shadow boxing. But most people that do jiu-jitsu don't shadow grapple, if you will. All right? But wrestlers do. So I think it's important to shadow wrestle, visualize what you're doing and moving around with your hands and always motion into that footwork, motion into your offensive techniques, motion into your sprawls. That way there, you're always teaching your body and your feet to properly position themselves for correct offensive techniques as well as defensive techniques. Now, one more thing is, of course, if I'm in a square stance like this, I don't want to be too wide, right? Now I'm not agile enough and I don't want to be too close as well. Meaning if I'm in a staggered stance, I don't want to collect my feet as such. Right? So imagine this. You have a magnet placed on this foot, and then there's a magnet placed on that foot. And they're both at south pole. So that means that every time I want to bring my feet together, you want to feel that that can't go there. Right? So that's a good drill to try to keep in mind every time you're using your motion, is try to keep the distance between your feet. So every time this one pushes this way, it almost drives the other one. Like you're shuffling, but not collecting them together. All right? You can get away with collecting your feet, but you have to be very fast in repositioning them as quickly as possible. There's a couple of more tips I want to share. The first one is always keep your eyes in front. I covered that in a previous video. Although we're looking at our footwork when we're practicing, I don't want to be looking down. See, I want to be looking up in front. Visualize the opponent. Once again, look at the chest. The second point is always try to think where your balance is. So we talked about the distance of the feet, but also if I want to move forward, I don't want to lead with my head. So if I'm moving this way, I don't want to lose balance by moving my head before my feet moves. And in contrast, if I'm moving backwards and I see someone shooting, I definitely don't want to bring my upper body backwards before I start to shuffle my feet back, right? I'm going to be late. If I'm moving to my left, I don't want to move my head first. That way there, all the weight is on this lead leg, and that forces me to shuffle my feet in this fashion. So I want to keep always steady, good posture. That's why the first video was critical. Once I know I'm centered here, if I need to move this way, boom, right? This way, boom, boom, boom. Short, small, choppy steps is the way to go. All right, guys, so there you have it. Motion, aka footwork for wrestling, NOGI Jiu-Jitsu. Guys, hope you enjoyed this content. Leave us a like. Also, if you are new to this channel, make sure to subscribe for more videos just like this one. I will see you in the next video. Take care.